There we go. I know Dan didn't unmute his mic because I was going to tell him, but he didn't do it today. But we want to welcome everybody to Sales Chatter Live, the logistics podcast, where we aim to help 10,000 reps hit a million GP in less than 12 months. I'm your co-host, Ryan Mohamed. With me is the man who is still muted, who doesn't want to talk to anybody because he wants to keep himself muted. And he's just really intrigued about watching Strays again. What's going on, Dano?
I remembered 30 seconds in that I didn't repost. So I go to repost, and then all of a sudden I got double the music in my ear, and I'm hearing you talk. And you ever have that happen where you get so like, oh my God, what do I? And you just don't push any button, and things just are going on and dinging in the background, and you're enjoying it. Anyways, yeah, Ryan, what's happening?
You know, another day, man. Another day in paradise, living the dream, my man. We had a great episode Monday, and we're really going into like I'm really looking forward to the first. Having conversations with people and what's looking at for the rest of Q4 when we kind of enter there. Are people running into Q4, or are they just dragging into Q4? Is kind of like the question I kind of have for people these days because it's been
what's been the answers to that?
It's a little bit mix of both. People are tired. Logistics managers are tired. Accounting people are tired. Everyone, I think, right now is just tired. And I think, we get that time to like go on vacation and recharge. But hey, man, sometimes a week vacation, whether it be staycation or going away to a nice hot tropical island is not enough, right? Because you come back to it. But, I think it's engaging better conversations with people. People are more open to share their struggles, and instead of like, let me just only share my wins. So that's why we have platforms like this to connect with other people and just talk about that. Anyway, what are you seeing as well on your side, Dano?
So a lot of vacations, like a ton of vacations. A lot of people that I'm talking to are kind of doing the 2-week thing as opposed to the week thing. And it's funny because the consensus is coming back and saying, yeah, it's great to get away. But at this point, nobody can do my job because traffic managers typically have so much on their shoulders right now. So a couple that I've spoken to are like, yeah, it was great when I was away, but like within 2 days, I'm re-stressed again because you kind of feel like you're that 2 weeks behind, right? Yeah. From a sales perspective, I could tell you that over the last week, I've taken a day or two off just because my head was pounding. And I'll tell you, Ryan, the next day I get up and it's like, oh, I'm behind. Right. And it's enjoyable and needed, but I feel like I'm playing catch up when I get back. And you know what? I think it's from a vacation perspective, I think a lot of people feel that way when they get back into the office. Right. I mean, depending on what position you hold, you feel behind the 8 ball. Right? Like even in sales, you might have a couple of guys that were working on some hot deals and you get back and a couple of deals are closed. And then you can't help but thinking, if I didn't go on vacation, would I have closed some hot deals too? That kind of
I'm a big advocate for say vacation. And what's helped me with that, Dan, that you're talking about is instituting something where I don't take 2 days off. I could take 1 day off, but don't let it go to 2 days. And, I think when you kind of schedule, you kind of like time block that, like, having that like catch up day or catch up period, because let's say you go on vacation. I remember when I used to go salary and be in the office, that first day would really just be catching up on emails, so I allotted myself the entire morning from like 7 or 8 a.m. to maybe like noon, just catching up on emails and things like that. I did see my emails while I was away, but I don't know, man. When I go on vacation, man, I'm just the type to just put my phone. I don't even take my laptop but mind you, like we have amazing people out there, just like with our guests today, that might not have that luxury of doing that because they own the business, right? But like for me, I like to put my phone in the safe, and I'm enjoying, man. I am enjoying it and make it fruitful because what is the what is the sacrifice you're making there? Or like, what do you, if you have kids, what are you showing your kids? You know, that, you know, we're on this vacation, we're supposed to be present with each other. We're not doing that. You know, for me, I'm work is like, you know, what is it? Work to live, not live to work. You know, those are kind of like my philosophies, but I kind of live a little bit different as opposed to like other people in terms of, you know, we got to get this. They're excited for the next sale and things like that. But, you know, for us, it's, I really find that, you know, connecting with my wife again, connecting with my dogs and connecting with people in nature and stuff like that, that has a better ROI to me than worrying about like, you know, like if the shipment picked up or anything like that, because hey man, you'll get resolved at the end of the day.
Ryan, that's a beautiful thing, a way to move through your vacation. I often thought if my family saw me working on vacation, they'd think, wow, like what a work ethic.
No, opposite.
And for years, that's what I did.
Yeah.
And, you know, regret is one thing, but now I don't. You know, when I wake up in the morning, I always bring my laptop, but when I wake up in the morning, if nobody's up, I'll put in an hour or so work, you know, kind of out having a coffee or something. But after that, it's pretty much null and void.
Yeah, my wife and I, we got a thing like, oh, sorry, we'll introduce last thing I'll say, but we got a no phones before 9 and after 9 policy. So, you know, we gotta connect with each other, man. But anyways, sorry to take it up. You know, let's we have an amazing guest today, Dan.
Yes, we do. Everybody knows Nicole. How are you?
Hi guys. I'm like listening, chomping at the bit in the background. I have so much to say on vacation.
Oh, let's hear it.
Well, I mean, before I was like your old self, Dan. And then I realized that time is precious. Life is precious. And so I literally close up the laptop. I may on occasion pop in, see an email. Oh, exactly. See an email, but I do nothing with it. And it's the whole idea of completely unwinding, because I've come to realize that there is always going to be work tomorrow. There always will. And so it's like you can live on the emphasis of got to get it done, but it'll be there tomorrow. Like there's nights even just a normal day, I stay at work until, 1 a.m. And then I get in that next day, I feel awesome. But 2 days later, so I'm like, man, this is just killer. So it will always be there tomorrow. And you have to take a break for you. You have to understand that life is short, precious. Like, do you relax? Relax, for sure.
You know, I love that. I remember Christine and I were on a cruise with the kids, and we were in the middle of the Mediterranean, or the middle of the Caribbean Ocean, and from one island to the next, and it was kind of like a lull in the afternoon. You know, we did the whole pool on the deck thing and all this crap, and we go back to the room. The kids go to their room, we go to our room, and then found Christine and I on our iPads on the deck of the cruise ship checking emails. We kind of just both looked at each other and went like, really?
What are we doing?
What are we doing? And it was kind of, but it was this like, we got to have the Wi-Fi package because we want to, and Christine makes a very valid point when she says, I just want to go in quickly every day. So when I get back, I don't have a couple of hundred unanswered emails. So like go in, delete the ones that are irrelevant, kind of flag the ones that have to be addressed when we get back, which makes sense for an individual, right? Whereas I'm the type of person where I see the email, I'm like, okay, I'm replying to it. And it's like, customer sends an email, I'm replying to it. And I get the, wow, you're on vacation and you're replying to me. And it was that false perception of, oh yeah, I'm giving you more value than anyone on the market can give you. Right?
I make sure I sign out of everything, and that's the way to do it. That's
actually a really good way to do it.
Right, put an out of office on and talk to people who are in if you're a sales rep, go, hey, I have this potential pending. Can I have my IT forward my emails to you? Like, sorry, dude, when you're out, I'll do the same thing, and have each other's backs and like cover that way. And I always preach at my company. I have a great vacation policy, and I do not let my people roll it over, not because I'm greedy. I want them to be greedy. I want them to be greedy with their time. And so we actually monitor that throughout the year, and we're like, hey, you're accumulating too much. again, not because I don't want to pay out, or I want people to go take a break. And the people who do, I'm taking off Monday and Friday, Monday and Friday, Monday and Friday, Monday and Friday. That's not enough to just have your whole thing of Monday and Fridays. You have to step away, refresh your brain. And I always find that when I get back, I'm like recharged. I came back with a new application idea. I was like, hey, I got this idea. And it came from not staring at my crap and being open. So,
well, you allowed yourself to be bored, and I think that's a big thing that we don't allow ourselves anymore. I always related to like when I was a kid, we went to the doctor's office. We didn't have cell phones, so we'd had like those lame sticky magazines or those sticky toys that kids would play with. But we had to be bored ourselves, right? And I think when we go on vacation, Nicole, I agree with you 100% saying that you come back focused, because if I go on a 7-day vacation, I'm not gonna lie, on Thursday, I'm chomping at, because we go from Saturday to Saturday. On Thursday, I'm ready to come back home. But we're gonna kind of let the Friday and Saturday go out. But I'm ready to come back home and go at it, right?
Yeah.
So it's not a situation where like I'm just lounging for the 7 days, and you can do whatever you want. But when you allow yourself to sit by the pool and really think, or you got a really good book that you've kind of been like putting off, or just meeting new people and conversations, because I think I get a lot of my ideas and applications from talking to people from outside the industry, because naturally you're gonna be like, hey, what do you do for work? And then they're gonna relate some kind of story to something like they've done. And I was like, okay, well, this is a great perspective. So kudos to you for having that amazing vacation policy, because not a lot of companies can realize that. Like I've had places where I've worked at in the past where they said, hey, this is your book of business. We can't guarantee that it's going to be the same when you come back. So it's like making me feel guilty for taking vacation.
Yeah, that's terrible.
It's a reality.
Or concern that your income is not the same when you get back. That's,
well, you know what? Who cares?
That's horrible.
It's like, really, how much are you going to give up? And so I look at it that way. Like even people who are in carrier sales, like they're not booking as much freight, and so it's going to affect their commission. But guess what? Joe Schmo is going to go on vacation, and you're going to have an influx then. So plan accordingly in your life, so that way you can afford to do that mentally. Because then if you're stressing about that, you're not enjoying anyways. But one last thing I do want to say, our phones now, guys, like we can literally set limits on how much can you look at your email, how much can you be on Facebook, how much can you be on LinkedIn. On vacation, if you need to be connected, put a limit. I get 15 minutes of the day total. And your phone will go, hey, your time is up. You can't do it.
Yeah.
And so
but there is that little button though that says, like, because I have that, but it says like, ignore. Exactly. 1 more minute or ignore. But here's another tip before we get to today's topic. I learned this a couple of weeks ago, and it's actually been really, really cool. You could actually change on your iPhone. I don't know about Android, but you could actually change your phone to black and white. And when I change my phone to black and white, it's very unappetizing. Like I don't want to use my phone with it being black and white. So anybody who's looking, who is like, they spend too much screen time, that's a good tip that's worked for me. And same thing with Nicole, setting those limits and getting rid of that 1 more minute or like ignore for the day.
So let me ask this question to you. Can you guys not just put your phone down and not touch it?
No.
Really?
There's always something, man. There's always something.
Oh, wow.
I
My
can, but
phone goes right here, and 99.9% of the day, I never even touch it.
Oh, no. And like while I'm sitting here, I'm getting notifications. And so I'm like,
my wife is
So it's
texting me right
driving
now.
you nuts.
Yeah.
I took all the apps off my home screen just so I don't see the 1s and the 2s. Because I was like, all right, that's what freaks me out is hey, you need to look at this. Tap, 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 tap. So I went through and turned off notifications for everything unless it's my email, or because it's a constant, and you almost feel like chained and shackled to this thing,
Yep.
Speaking of chain and shackle, one more thing that before we get to today's topic is when you're looking at vacation and business, understand one thing for all you reps out there that are cradle to grave, and you're constantly running accounts that require you to quote 15 times in a day to get this business or to get that business. If you go on vacation, just know nobody's going to run that account like you. Nobody. Operations teams will not have the time to get 15, 20 quotes in a day in order to manage or grow your business. So just be very aware of that when you're selecting the business you use. I've seen so many people generate some pretty good numbers, go away on vacation and do a third of what they did when they were there, because people just won't. For whatever reason, they're not going to put that effort in that you put in. To just fully understand that as a sales rep, seen it so many times.
Sure.
So many times. So brings us to today's topic, and I know Ryan absolutely loves this thumbnail.
I was just gonna say
Um,
that's like my science teacher, Mr. Korchinski, God rest his soul. I'm like, how did you get a picture of Mr. Korchinski on here? Like that's, you know,
yeah, you
it's
gotta love
awesome.
Canva. So when I've shared this with people, I've gotten mixed um, feedback. Some people are of the impression, no, and in some companies, it is the traffic manager or vice president of logistics that's the head of the department. But in a lot of companies, it's not. On the surface, it is, but we find out in the background, um, for lack of a better term, and I don't mean this in any ill to any traffic manager, but somebody else is pulling the strings. Um, and, you know, guys, I'd love to get your thoughts on it. We talked a little bit about it off air. I look at the salespeople in companies as one of the most important people in the company, because if the salesperson sold the account that you're delivering the freight for, who
Exactly.
do you think is the first person that's going to get like a proverbial shit on when something goes wrong big time? Right? It's the salesperson. And then the salesperson, because again, just like us as commission salespeople, anything that goes wrong, it directly impacts our commission, our pocketbook, our relationship, our long term business development. And so that's where the fires start. And I've been through a ton of companies where the CEO is the one that will call me up when there's a big issue, not the traffic manager. The salesperson will call me up if there's a big issue. Lead of the ops team, not the traffic manager, because I'm making the ops team's life hell for the distribution. There's so many different levels to it. What have you guys seen in your business where the authority kind of goes outside that traffic department?
I see it all the time. And I think it depends on what type. And when I say all the time, I mean it's all over the place. And I think that's the person who's trying to solicit the business and build the relationships job, is to figure out who holds those pieces of the puzzle. Because I do think that the traffic manager is very transactional. Like they're going to be, a spot bid came over, and so they have to get that shipment out. And so they're going to basically hold the keys on a transactional level. And I think once you really want to develop something of deep, meaningful, volume-based business, you're going to obviously you care about the traffic manager, because they're going to be the first people seeing, hey, Dan's company is always picking up, or they're late, or they're this. But at the same time, you have to really find out the pieces of the puzzle that matter to that company. I've seen it to where customer service holds the keys to the car. And reason is sales is coming to them going, hey, don't mess up this order. And then they're the ones talking to their customer. And so then their customer, that's who pays their bills. And so they have a prime interest to make sure that, sales is happy. They're going to be breathing down on operations to make sure that those shipments are moving. They're going to be the ones asking the questions on transit, relaying that to the consignee, who's the ultimate customer. So I've seen that quite a bit. I look at my own organization and I think about myself, even being a CEO. I don't sit in the day-to-day, right? So I don't see every single shipment, but I'm offering a new service offering. I'll hear little things like rumblings of good things. I hear the good and the bad, obviously, but I'll hear, hey, this carrier is killing it in Chicago. So then I go and I call the carrier and I'm like, hey, owner to owner, let's have a conversation and tell me more about what it is and what are your goals. And, you've been bringing success to my operations. I want to bring it to yours. So I'm starting a whole new division of my business in different markets, going owner to owner. Now that's the volume, right? But who's tendering those loads? Not Nicole. It's again, understanding my COO. He might have a relationship. So I think it comes into this piggy bank from all different people putting their quarters in. But I think the dollar bills come in above the traffic manager role and all over the place.
Beautiful.
Like that.
I just want to acknowledge you, like, from saying that you talk to owner, let's say for the Chicago, like a lot of people can learn from that, right? Thinking that, hey, we just got this one carrier, they're doing an amazing job. And realistically, what we kind of see is that revolving door, got a good carrier, they're crushing it, they're crushing it, they're crushing it. That one mistake that they make where they overcommit to something or something just kind of happens and that trust is broken. But, you're expanding. So I want to say kudos to that and acknowledge that. For myself, I look at the way that I prospect for my clients. The way that my number one way, and this is basically my secret that I'm kind of telling, is that I go on Indeed or any kind of like search, like job search place, and I actually look up logistics managers. I look for companies that are actually like changing into new roles, because when they make that posting, either the person abruptly quit, or maybe there's like a 2 month, a 60 to a 90-day succession plan where they're going to bring somebody in new. So usually when I call these companies, they actually direct me over to sales. Whether it be sales, and sometimes I was mentioning off air when we're talking about, I love to talk to accounting. The reason why I like to talk to accounting is that they're the ones who cut the checks. And the reason why these guys are so important is that they could have one carrier, one broker that is not doing the right BOLs. They're not submitting the right invoices. They're not putting, they have like the wrong payment information. We've seen that with factoring quite a bit. Like, I hate factoring, by the way. But we've seen that so many times that it just takes so much time out of their plate when they should be doing things like, hey, worrying about payroll or worrying about like business expenses or different things like that. It's just like with you, Nicole, like as you were a CEO, it's like you have like your tasks that you have to do, and then you're constantly getting pulled away, let's say from a sales rep or operations person. It's just like, it's that time and investment, because I saw a post today on TikTok where it says like, every day, the average human only really has 5 hours of deep work, like truly deep work. They have 5 hours. So it's about maximizing that time. So I like to talk to all the different departments, kind of paint a bigger picture, because when I talk to a logistics manager, they're not going to say, hey man, we kind of suck right now. They're not going to tell you the low and lows, right? The salespeople will be, never. And it's their job to do that as well. It's just like the secretary or the gatekeeper when you call in, they're not going to be like, yeah, of course, I'll get you over to John in logistics. They've been kind of
Here's
told
his
like,
email.
Yeah, exactly. It's
he
never
only
like that.
answers calls at this time. Call back in 12 minutes.
Yeah. Feel free to send him an email a day for 4 days straight.
Right. Sorry,
Ryan, you bring up a valid point. I've always gone to salespeople and CEOs. And the reason I do that is I go to all CEOs with email, never a phone call until we schedule a call or until they redirect me to somebody I should speak to. And the reason I do emails because I found most CEOs, especially in larger corporations, get back to me at like 7, 8 o'clock at night, right? Because it's kind of like, okay, they see the email, they either flag it, they ignore it. Maybe the third email, I'll get a reply. But it's always at nighttime because they have this list of things they need to do. And connecting with a freight salesman is probably very low, like lower than a snake's belly button on that list during most times. The salespeople love to talk, and especially salesperson to salesperson. I've always found I get way more information out of a salesperson than you would any traffic manager, because you're right. A traffic manager, when you call them, I'm not going to say, dude, I suck at my job. Like, I picked the wrong carriers. I picked the wrong people. Like, where a salesperson is going to be like, you know what, for the most part, they're okay, but there's issues here, here, and here. And especially if we sit down and have a very casual conversation, right? Again, salesperson, CEO, let me CC you on an email to the traffic manager, the VP of logistics to make an introduction. So many times I've gone that route, and that route has kind of twofold, right? One is, okay, great, let's talk. Two is, why did you go over my head, right? And it's interesting because the answers to that are usually, well, you know what? In all fairness, I don't know if you're coming or going. The CEO knows if you're coming or going. Most salespeople know if you're coming or going. So I just kind of figured I'd start there and direct me to the right person. I'd hate to talk to your assistant for 3 months, realizing they have no authority and you have all the authority, but they're trying to kind of protect your time. You know what I mean?
I think you can spin it too, Dan, to say like, I've invested in interest in your entire corporation. And so my job is to develop partnerships amongst every level of your organization. So I apologize if you feel that I did that. I do value you, but you might hear that I'm going to call your CFO as well, because everybody has a different objective and role within a company. And the more that I know as a sales rep that can cultivate customized solutions, it's going to help me bring it to the table so you can have a ninja button. Because the ninja button is what everybody needs, and everybody's damn ninja button is different, right?
Yeah.
And so I think if you phrase it that way, you know, why would you do that? And it's like, every company is different. And so for me to do my job effectively for you, I need to know all the moving parts and really, where's your company headed? Your CEO is going to give me your vision, which might not come to you yet. So for me, being in advance, knowing that you guys are planning to acquire multiple companies here in the future, lets me get to my carrier base, lets me get to my operational team. So that way I understand where are you headed and how can I get you to hit those goals?
Couldn't agree with that more. That is so important. Like there's one company that I work with. Everybody who knows me. I love dogs and stuff like that. So the dog food company, we feed raw. I went to the company and I was like, look, I love your products. I want to work with you guys. And I've been having conversations with the CEO, and the CEO actually told me that, you know, we're expanding into the United States. They're a Canadian company. And then when I had that conversation with logistics manager didn't even know about that at like their expansion plans as well. So Nicole, you're so right on the nail by saying, like, you know, connect with, because you want to know what the vision is. Because if you talk to a CEO and they're like, hey, full transparency, where our finances, we're probably going to close down in the next couple months, then is that a customer that you want to work with as well, right? And another thing about talking about the sales reps, guys, that I thought was really important that Dan said was that sales reps, just like us, we're really paid to like know the product inside and out. So if you really want to get that product knowledge of, like, you know, let's say if it's like a roofing company, like how does the roofing look like? How does it come and things like that? Because I feel like there's, anytime I get on a call with a logistics manager, there's somewhat that expectation that you're supposed to already know all this stuff. You know, and you're like, why would the logistics manager have to tell you how we do things? But it's just like, you know, when you talk to the sales rep, they let you know the ins and outs of the actual product itself. So then you could bring up those fine tooth points and be like, okay, well, hey, normally you guys put this on a flatbed. You know, maybe you guys can just put this on a step deck and get some more space out of your things. Have you guys considered that? And kind of come up with solutions. So I think amazing points by both of you, because the call, I just keep coming back to what you said about that CEO to CEO, and it doesn't really matter from that point, but you are invested. You are investing. I love that.
Scary, Ryan. And so when you say a sales rep, because yesterday spent 4 hours with, I don't want to say a new person in our company, but someone who's really trying to grow their customer base. And so when I see that excitement, I like want to help them, right? And so I'm telling him some of these things that we are literally talking about right now. And I can see that if you're a new sales rep, that can be intimidating. Like, how the hell do I call a CEO of a B word company, billions, right? How do I call a company that's to this level and talk to the CFO? What am I going to really bring? And you have to still try. You have to go in there and have that mindset that everybody at the end of the day just has the goal set of what they're supposed to do. And so you're just trying to gain that knowledge on how can you help them hit those goals? Because it's daunting. It's really daunting, you know, like calling a major CEO and going, hi, I work at this company, 5 million in sales, or we do 30 million in sales. And these companies are in the B's, you know, it's
they spend what your sales are on office supplies, right?
Right. It's just, it's intimidating when you're in the smaller spot. I think someone maybe in a bigger company or a brokerage or a trucking company, you might feel a little bit more confident. But you got to cut your teeth somewhere and realize people are just people.
Yeah. Yep. And the reality is, I think the latest statistic is over 90%, 92% or something of CEOs were salespeople. They have before they were a CEO, right? So
they got to bring in revenue.
Yeah. And they understand you, right? They understand what you're trying to do. They understand your what you're trying to go after. You know, I've found by talking to salespeople before, during, and, you know, after relationships, I found a lot of things. Like, you know, one company I worked with, traffic manager was like, okay, well, you know, we got average of 50 loads a month. And I'm talking to the sales rep and I'm like, you know, just, you know, about 50 loads a month or something. He says, yeah, but really 30 of those loads come in the last week for month end. So I'm like, okay. Now we're understanding how the volumes run.
Right.
You know, because he goes, we put our specials out on the last Monday of the month. That's where most of our sales come in. So it's like, okay, so I'm not really planning for like 10 to 12 a week. I'm planning for like 3 to 4 a week and like 30 in week 4, which obviously understanding how that, I don't know where Ryan just went, understanding, oh, he's got an 11 o'clock, understanding where all that capacity is and understanding how I need to manage that capacity according to a client's distribution process.
Mm-hmm.
You know, where it might take you a month to figure that out, just working as a traffic manager.
If ever, I mean, because you're trying to get that opportunity, and then you can go to your, because when you said that to me, my head started spinning going, okay, so that traffic manager might be able to source and do things on those weeklies, but then when that month end volume comes, that person's head could be spinning. Now I'm going to call you on the 29th. I'm going to call you on the 28th and go, hey, how's that looking? Because now they're busy and they need the assistance. So again, it just gives you those clues. We're all playing Clue, right? Who done it? Who did you throughout the whole thing. And so I couldn't agree more. I went to a trade show in Vegas. It was a baking trade show. And I was disappointed at first because I'm like, there's no one here that I could really talk to. So as you said, on the sales rep side, I just started talking to the sales reps and they started giving me so much information, you know, and before I even had to get the card to make the phone call, that I was equipped. And this was probably 8 years ago. So like even getting that information, and now we can go back to the office. We can hop on Zoom info. We can hop on all of our tools and find out who and what and name drop and look them up on LinkedIn and target different messages. I mean, we have a plethora of good people when you're at these trade shows to go, hey, how is this going for you? But understanding your value. And I think that's the whole concept. Say you're going to a trade show and you're talking to a sales rep, understanding what are their objections that they go wow, that just got all tongue-tied with their customer base, you know, and then trying to fill those gaps. Because I say this, I think every time I come on your show and every time I go somewhere else, any podcast, is I hear this common thing where people go, awesome, you're on the sales phone, you're on the rep. Dan, I'm losing my tongue today. You're getting on the call with someone and they're going, okay, so what is it that you do? And they're just going, I can handle anything nationwide. We do it all. And so when you're talking to a sales rep yourself, you need to really be specific on what your value is. So that way it'll give you that insight. So thanks for my tongue bender there. I couldn't.
That's okay. You know, it goes directly back to that. It goes, you know, with the understanding that I'm good at these 3-4 things. And these 3-4 things really dictate the 90% of the value I bring to my customers. Mm-hmm. And my first question with every salesperson or CEO is, do any of these 4 things kind of hit you right dead square on the forehead? Right? You know, depending on what it is, if you're LTL, if you're truckload, if you're reefer, like if you're expedited, like your company, it's do these 4 issues that expediting solves hit you dead square in the forehead? Yes. Let's have a conversation. Because if those 4 things don't, it's not worth it. Not even to have the conversation with the salesperson, because if they've got all of those 4 things covered, you're either a backup or you have a better opportunity with somebody that says, oh, these 2? Yeah. And a salesperson will tell you that. A traffic manager won't, I believe anyways.
Right.
And again, it's because I think deep down, if they admit they have those problems to a stranger, it's like they're not doing their job. And I'll go so far as to the majority of my customers don't necessarily phrase it as I've got a huge problem.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, this is happening. Do you have any solutions? Right. And it's like, yeah, we can do that. But we know that's a massive problem in their logistics, like in their overall supply chain. And you know, as we've said a million times, collaboration is truly the big thing. When you collaborate with the CEO, the traffic manager, the VP of sales, the sales people on specific accounts, you raise the bar completely in the company. So let's say the traffic manager disappears and a new traffic manager comes in, you have that longevity and those relationships built on multiple levels, like you were talking about, to allow you to continue to serve that client at the highest levels.
Sure. I used to
Right?
have a customer that would call me, and they'd call me to understand what was happening within their company. So they would go, hey, and I would be able to go, well, I've heard that this is going to transpire. This acquisition's happening. I read in food business news that you guys are starting a new line of this. And so they would literally ask me questions, because a lot of these plants and these big companies, and we're talking, massive shippers, they have disconnection. I mean, they can't understand what's happening in every single facility, every single plant. And so, pulling and getting all of those pieces together of the puzzle just equips you. And I also think that people believe that they're going to be able to ask those questions right away. So when you meet a shipper, you're not expecting them to tell you, hey, here are my massive problems. You have to kind of like get to know them first. You have to put out your values. And, I've seen it to where people just want to pick up the phone and be like, who are you using? What are you doing? What's wrong with them? You can't approach it that way to start. You have to just bring your values, touch them, remove any form of desperation from you. Think of everybody in your well as your friends, and you're just touching them and being there for them like you would with your friends. And then eventually you start getting to the root of what's going on in people's lives. Same thing in business. It takes time to develop trust and relationships and get someone to call you to go, we're having this massive problem. And it's always covered up in different phrasing.
I've found over the last little while, I've been very, very, very direct. And I find my emails look more like marketing emails than sales emails. And I mean, don't know if it's a good thing, to be honest with you. It's still very new. But I'm happier with it because I know I'm being direct. I'm immediately bringing to the forefront, here's the first 4 issues that this service solves.
Sure.
And I kind of, over the first 4 or 5 emails, I make sure I talk about those services and what it solves. And to the point where it's like, don't miss out. Let's get this going. And those get sent to CEOs. And I'm getting a pretty decent reply. And it's not a, go take a long walk off a short pier kind of reply. It's like, hey, thank you very much. Right now, these aren't an issue for us, but I'll let you know. Or yes, I definitely like to talk to you more. And for me, and again, we're all different. I mean, this is why these shows exist and why 100 of the other of them exist, because everybody's going to have a different opinion and kind of mull together what you think will work and to do it. But my only thing is I'm sick of beating around the bush, right? Like I've got something I can offer. If you're in this wheelhouse, we've already got the formation, the starting point of a really good relationship. If you're not in this wheelhouse, I'd prefer not to chase you for 3 weeks or a month or 2 months, because I don't think it serves you or I. Do you know what I mean? And that's kind of the approach I've taken, especially
that's confidence
in today's.
I know. And that's building. So when you think of a brand new person that might be in the sales spot for a couple of months or even a year, it's hard to have that mindset. And it really takes time for you to start understanding your own value on what you bring. And so, I mean, I really think what you're saying is super important to people who are new to this industry, because you're going to spend a ton of time and you're going to look back in 2 to 3 years and go, whoa, I could have had some pretty big accounts by now because of that emphasis of what you're saying. So I really hope people take note to this. So I'm sorry I interrupted you, but I kind of want to go.
No.
Newsflash, listen to Dan right now.
Well, it took me almost a decade to get there, because for a decade, when I first started in the industry, like it was our whole sell as a Canadian broker was backhaul from the US. right? You pay us US funds. We're at $1.56 exchange rate. That means I get over 50 cents on the dollar. So what Yellow will charge you for, a truckload, I could do for 900 US, what they would do for 1600 US. And I can do it because I make almost like $1,400. I pay a Canadian carrier, it's backhaul. So there wasn't really any value besides a monetary value. It was the way I was trained when I first started. And then you get into your own, right? You land, and for all of you new salespeople out there, this is what I would suggest you do, is you get a couple of accounts and ask them the question. And here's the big thing. Any question in life you ask, be prepared for the answer, right? Very important, because you might be thinking, oh, I'm like gold. And then somebody might come back and say, well, you're always the cheapest. If you weren't the cheapest, I have a mandate. And it shatters your whole feeling that, I add value to this client. You add a dollar price to the client, and that's it. So there is that part of it. But I remember saying to a lot of clients, because I said, what is this value thing? Like, how do you know what value you bring? Because every salesperson is different, and so I started asking, like, why is it you use me? And I know it's probably a really weird question, but why? And gathering those answers, I was able to come up with kind of my 4 or 5 things that I know I did great. One of them was making the complex simple. Like, all of these things, moving parts, and I kind of just was able to see it and then simplify it for a customer, and they were like, perfect, I love it.
Yep.
Do it.
Yeah.
And so I would lead with that. Right? Is your supply chain complex? Are you finding pieces falling through the cracks? You don't have to answer me, but if you are, I'd love an opportunity to talk to you. Right? Like, these kind of things where they can say, well, yeah, what do you got? Without saying, yeah, by the way, I'm not doing my job properly and things are falling through the cracks. So kind of always leaving that back door open, if you will, for them to kind of escape. But it's, I mean, it was almost 10 years before I realized that.
I know. And that's why I want people to understand and listen up when you say that, because they put so much emphasis and concern around crafting this thing and the fluff and the this and the that. It's like not necessary. Get to what your roots are of what your company's good at. Realize that even if you get a customer, that doesn't mean that customer is going to fit your company's culture and what your company's goal sets are. So you might not even align there. It's all about finding the right customer. And by doing that is doing it how you said, where it's, this is where I bring the value. Here's how we've helped other companies obtain those goals, and would love to learn yours, because your company is very different than my customer over here.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people want to throw out lookalikes in their sales process. Like, I work with company X and Y who are very similar to you. Well, those companies are still insanely different, even though they make the same product. And so it's understanding where your value is and just trying to find the ones that have that need. So love what you said very much.
Yep. I love that. And there's to kind of cap this off, there's also, as a sales rep, when you said, go to your company and find out what your company is good at, but also read through the BS, because some managers you'll go to and like, well, we're good at everything. So they're not skilled at that, understanding the narrowness of what people really want to hear these days. And I think more and more, and all you sales reps out there, please share with us, but more and more companies are looking for that differentiating factor.
Sure.
And no matter how big the company is, the Kuehne+Nagels, the Schneider, or the Schenkers, the Schneiders, the Landstars, all of these huge brokers, the C.H. Robinsons, they're not the greatest at everything, no matter how big they are.
No matter how many divisions they have, too.
Yeah, no matter how many.
Mm-hmm.
There's always people that are good, companies that are going to be better at 1 or 2 things than 5 of them. Always, no matter what. And it might even be, we're great at air and ocean, but it's only from Europe to North America, or from Asia to North America. It's not outbound. And it's kind of like it's putting the pieces together. And that's what traffic managers have to do. They have to put the pieces together for where people are. And if I was a traffic manager, I'd much rather have 5 or 6 suppliers and utilize their enormous strengths in every area than have one supplier or 2 suppliers which are mediocre in 3 or 4 areas, and I've got 3 or 4 areas that are solid. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
So it's leading with that understanding of what you're good at.
And I think for salespeople, if you're trying to figure out even what your true values are, because you said it great with saying some of it's BS, friend your operational people. They're your frontline folks that are meeting new carriers, bringing opportunities, can actually help you obtain true capacity that you can go walk into a customer with and open up your ears to hear like, oh, Chicago, I have Chicago. So the operational folks, I always feel like there's this sales versus ops. Both are equally damn important because the sales folks are out there really selling what the operational folks can do. And so you want to live in that same space together and position it the right way. So that way you're going to execute. Because if you get your first opportunity and it's something totally off the cuff that your company's never done, you are leaving a chance on the table, probably for a high success or fail rate on that shipment. And so just know what you're good at and go talk to the people who actually are making you good at those things.
Yeah. And I would even say, if you're new and, understanding the different way companies are set up, right? So some companies have ops departments per sales reps. Depending on the size of their business, they have like their own ops department. Other companies have centralized ops. I would say if you're new to this business, take 2 or 3 days and walk around the office. Talk to the highest producing salespeople. Talk to head of operations and say, like, what are we really good at? Like, what if you were to say, give me 3 things that this company excels at or your team excels at, what would it be? And if I were to talk to prospects that would need that, can I lean on you to help me out with suppliers and connections and all this kind of stuff? Because I think when people are really succeeding, Ryan says it all the time, lift as you climb. And I think these people will want to lift you. If they don't want to lift you, then you might not be at the right company from a culture perspective, right? And if I were to start all over today, zero knowledge, nothing, I would probably spend a week minimum with the top reps, just picking their brain, saying like, what are you good at? Why are you good at? What are your customers saying? And I'd kind of gather all that information. I'd probably spend another day filtering it and really like drilling it down to the core 4, maybe 5 things that the company is really good at. And that would go in every single correspondence. To every single prospect. Because even though I don't know what I'm specifically good at this point, because I don't have any customers, I've never, you know what I mean? Like, you don't really know until you start digging in those core 4 might change a year down the road because you dug into so many operations. Now you're like that consultant kind of person where I come in and I really maximize, don't cheapen, I maximize profitability in your supply chain, but you got to have that experience. You can't just say you're the best at maximizing and have no idea where to start. So you start by utilizing other people's strengths. That is the core competencies of these big businesses inside the umbrella of your company. And then from there, you branch out on your own, but at least you can start within a week of blasting out. These are the core 4. If your company has challenges in any of these sections, I can help you. We've done it for X customer, Y customer, Z customer, and they don't have to be your customers because we've done it. Because you have salespeople that are willing to stand behind you and say, listen, I'll help you out if that happens.
Sure. And before you even start a company, we can even go further back, right? You can actually, if you feel like the interview process looks good, you have to remember that you are walking into an organization and you have to sell it. So you want to make sure that you're picking the right one. So even before you start your first day, you could easily go on LinkedIn, look up the company that you intend to start at, and you can actually connect with the sales reps then. And you can go, hey, what is it that our company is great at? I'm going to be joining you. I want to get my wheels churning and burning. So when I step in first day, and they might actually tell you things where you might go, oh, this isn't the right company for me, you know, because there is a lot of HR. I'm sorry, there can be fluff because they're not in it all day to understand the trueness of it. So you can start at the very beginning, and then obviously, if you like what you hear, walk into the operational side of things right away and do that as well. So
yeah, it's kind of like the old school when dispatch companies started popping up everywhere. You know, the big sale was a phone and a laptop is all you need. And as much as it's all you need, because from a communication standpoint, that's all you need. But there's a whole lot of other work that goes into it. Nobody ever talks about that work. It's kind of like that instantaneous. And a lot of the times companies are selling you to come work there.
Right.
And, I think debunking that and getting to the heart of what the company is about, to the true core values, because what a lot of companies put on a plaque on the wall, it's not necessarily when you get down into the nitty gritty, it's not the core values, right? So just as a sales rep, understand you got like operations, you've got sales, you've got accounting, you've got C-level, you've got, warehouse, speak to somebody on the warehouse floor. And what are some of the challenges you guys are facing? Oh man, these trucks never show up on time. You know what I mean? And then now you can get all these answers from multiple levels before connecting with somebody. Because then if those challenges on the warehouse level or on any of the levels hit your core four, now you send an email or a message or a phone call to the person that makes the decision, or at least one that's responsible for the decision, and you can address those core four already knowing it's a challenge.
Sure. The more you know.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah. Yep. The more you know, like that. Well, thank you so much for being here.
Love it. Great show. A lot of good nuggets. So
I hope people actually take it and apply it. Because I think when you apply it, I hope today spawns more people walking around their company going, okay, what is it exactly we're good at? And I think a lot of you out there, if you do that, it's going to surprise you. I really do. Because I think false perceptions of what we think we're good at and what customers say we're good at. I know for myself, when I started asking customers, it was nothing what I thought I was good at. It was like, never did I think complex to simple, right? It was like, to me, it was still very complex, but overwhelming. Customers said, I give you this complex kind of system and you break it down into the simplest form it can be. And for me, that was huge. So it's like, I lead with it. Why not? Because and again, here's another reason why leading with it based on what your customers say, because if you can easily say, and if this is something you're interested in, I'll give you 5 or 6 of my customers' names and contact numbers, give them a call. Because they're the ones that said it to you. So they're the ones that'll back it up, in reference letters and all this kind of stuff. Actually, even better, your core 4 and reference letters and first email sent out. Bang.
I mean, I've had clients write things. I've asked them, like, if they would put stuff on Google on our behalf, like an example. So then I can send out immediately, like, here's public information. So I am not taking and turning an email into whatever I want it to be. Here's a public post that my
declaration of what we did.
Right. And I think that stuff just speaks volumes. Now, does it get every single person to be interested? No, but that's what everyone needs to understand, is all of these things that you're doing add up to something. So you're trying to tell your story in tiny little increments. You got to remember that the traffic manager or the CEO, they don't have a ton of time. So you can't go too far in too. You just got to kind of touch it and keep showing the value throughout the whole thing. And some of these sales processes, I mean, for me, have been 3 years, they take a long time to establish. So
That's a great mic drop right there.